Hi, this is Kim Nelson with the Jewelry Design Department at FIT. I'm going to continue with a video regarding doing maquettes and early design development for a 3-stone ring. This is the maquette that I had made in the previous video. As I pointed out, there are a number of things that I don't love about it, but it didn't take long to make, and it will serve my purposes to take further to move forward with. Actually, as we pointed out in the other class, I'm going to go ahead and take this from this pre-assigned view to perspective. Doesn't make any real difference, but it's less confusing to see something strange over here. First step I'm going to do is I need to Boolean Union this. It's really important that wherever you can, it's not always possible, but wherever possible, that you Boolean Union all of your pieces together for a maquette. If you're going to make Rhino make a drawing, because what ends up happening is if you don't, Rhino can't see the stone intersecting with this, so you'll get multiple lines giving you confusing information. So, solid union, solid union, solid union, solid union, and there's my object, my maquette. I am going to select this and going to tell Rhino to make the views for me. There we go. Now it's really important, just as a matter of hygiene when you're working, that once you have these, you really want to group them together before you click anywhere. Just Control G. That way you can move them as a group, and you don't, because otherwise there are a lot of little curves in here that end up getting separated out. So I've got that. Now I like my, okay, going to temporarily ungroup, pull this out, and regroup. To ungroup is Control-Shift-G. Regroup is just Control-G. So I've got this. I don't like this view. And I might as well take this moment to show you how to get a 3/4 view that you like. Turn off some of the other layers that have extra information showing. Okay. So let's say I want to do a 3/4 view of this. I would pick the view that I like. For this ring, assuming there's going to be some interesting detail in the front, maybe something like that. All right. I'm going to create a sphere. In the center, and I like 10 millimeters. That's what I usually do. So now I have a sphere located in the middle of my drawing. I might want to keep this view in case I ever want to take another image of it exactly the way it is. So I'm going to go to Set View, and I'm going to come down to Named Views. I'm going to hit the little saved icon, and I'm going to call it 34 maquette. I always use 34 for 3/4 view. It's just faster to write. Okay. Now what that does for me is now that at any point in time I can come over here and hit Set View 34 maquette, and it'll bring it right back to there, which can be useful. Okay, I'm going to select these two things and repeat the command that I did before. Make 2D drawing, but this time just the current view. Going to Control G, group those together. I'm going to turn off the blue sizing ball and repeat that command. And Control G. Come into my top view, which is Control Tab to just move between views. I want to take my existing drawings, line them up in the center. So I use center snap to get the ring bore. That's fine. For now, I'm going to change their layer so I don't have to keep looking at them. I could have also hidden them. I have two drawings here on top of each other. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and draw a circle in the middle, 10 millimeters in diameter. I'm going to grab the one that has the circle in the middle. I'm going to do orient 2 points. Scale equals yes, 3D. I'm going to use my quad snap. And I'll grab the two side quadrants of that circle and the two side quadrants of the reference circle. Now I can throw away the reference circle. I'm going to do the same command with this drawing, and I can pick any 2 points that are on this drawing that are also on the reference drawing. I'm going to pick the corners of this facet. Delete that, and I now have to scale a 3/4 view the way I want it. Because Rhino will never draw a 3/4 view actual size. It doesn't know how. You have to help, which is what I just did. So here are my drawings. I'm going to take these drawings and bring them into a drawing program. Before I do that, I'm going to draw a rectangle around them. The reason for doing that is that when you bring these curves into a drawing program, it's going to try and crop them right to the edge of these curves. And that can get awkward. You can actually lose information sometimes. By putting a safe buffer around it, I can keep my curve safe. File, Export Selected. Okay. And in this case, I'll put it in our class folder. I'm going to export them as an Adobe Illustrator file. This is important. You want to make sure you preserve unit scale. Rhino unit equals 1 millimeter. Okay? RGB. And it's important that you're in an orthographic view. If you're in the perspective viewport when you do this, these will first off be angled. It'll take a photograph, a snapshot of the current view, which will not be actual size. You never want this, ever, ever, ever. So whenever you take line work out of Rhino, make sure you're in the top view, or whatever orthographic view you've put the drawing in. Usually top view. Okay, so I've done that. The only thing left for me to do now is to decide what I want to do with this file, because if I save this right now, I've condensed all of my maquette into something that is now one big block, and I might want to go back and work with that maquette further. I don't want that to happen, but I don't want to lose this drawing either. So I'm going to Control C, copy this to clipboard, takes it out of Rhino, so I can just undo. Until I have nothing to undo. And then Control V to paste. And so now I have a version of this file with my drawing in it. Now I can save. Okay, since we're now working in a 2D program, it's time to move into Illustrator. I can either open Illustrator or I can just click on the file and it'll open itself in Illustrator. Illustrator is part of the Creative Suite. You have access to it for free as students, and it's in all of the homework labs. So, open, go to the location, and there you have it. You want to group these all together, so I'm going to Control A to select all, Control G to group. That way when I click on this to move it, I don't end up taking just one little piece with me. Now, if you zoom in here, you will see that Rhino makes really fat lines. There's irony here, because if you print out Rhino lines, they're always too small. They're hairline, which is why you can't just take these and print them out. They'll be too small to work with, too fine. But if you try and take Rhino lines to another program, they always come in really thick and heavy. So it's worth coming in here and just taking a minute to set this to whatever you want it to be. Since I'm going to be sketching on this, I'll make it 0.33. Any numbers you can do. Basically 0.22, I always do double numbers because it's fast to type. 0.22 is really, really fine for a final to a client for a technical drawing. But to sketch on top of, those are too fine. So 0.33. If these are selected, like they are now, you can see the little control points lit up. When I hit enter, this whole thing will now become much finer. I'm going to just leave it selected, and I'm going to export it. As a JPEG to the same folder. Export. You want to make sure it's set to the highest quality, RGB, 300 ppi, art optimized, which is the highest anti-aliasing, and hit OK. Now this is out of here. Now, by way of true transparency, I will share with you that I do know that Rhino, I've developed this habit because I've been doing this for a long, long time. Rhino didn't used to have the functionality to allow you to control those line weights. It does now. I still prefer the quality of the line I get that way, but to be fair, I will set it up so we can compare it. And then you can make your own decision. Basically, the only layers I want active are that, so hang on. Okay. And then just turn on the lines. All right, so I have this. Select this, and you would go to print. And then under print, you have a choice. You can print it as an image file or to a regular printer. So we're going to pick image file, 300 ppi, display color, and 1 inch on paper. I'm just going to make these both millimeter. Centered, but here's where you have the line width. The default line width here is 0.2 millimeters, what I would have called the really fine technical drawing. It used to be hairline back in the day. We'll set this to something similar, 0.35. And we will hit print. It'll ask me for a file location, and we'll put it in the same location. I'll take out the converted, although the converted is a Illustrator file. Okay, so we have this information now available to us from two different sources. I'm going to go into Photoshop. Now I'm using Photoshop because you guys have requested me to use Photoshop. So I'm using Photoshop. I can do the same thing in Painter very easily. In fact, more easily. So here we are in Photoshop. The workspace was hidden. So I'm going to, now yours is going to be a little different over here. Every time you open Photoshop, you end up with whatever the last person used. This is the layout I like. I throw away everything except for this main layers panel, and no. Great, now I can show you really how it's done. I did not want to have to do this. There. So I've taken these two apart. If I take this back over until I get a blue band on the side, it'll redock that. If I take color, I can dock it. If I take swatches and I add it in here, then it becomes a choice. So that's how you modify and set that up. Okay, File, New. Now, it's going to give you all kinds of choices. I like to use a standard 8.5 by 11. Actually, for most of my work, I use a 6 by 6 for jewelry. I've been doing a lot of illustration lately, but let's set up one for jewelry. Going to come in here and go inches. We're going to set the resolution to 300, which is what our resolution was in Rhino and in Illustrator. So it has to match. If the resolution of this document is different, it'll scale your image. And I want this to be 6 by 6 square. Create. So there's my image. Now I'm going to open our images. First I'll bring in the one directly from Rhino. Now this is opened into a different, it actually, see, this is very surprising. This shouldn't have happened. Going to close that out. See, I just brought that in from Rhino standard, and Photoshop did something weird with it. This is why I don't trust the Rhino route, is I get strange things. I'm going to try that again. Just a straight open. Yeah, don't even want to bother. Look at how fine the lines are, and not to mention how zoomed out they are. That makes no sense. Bring in the one from Illustrator. There. See? What I would expect to get. I want to put this in the 6-inch window, so I'm going to Control A to select the whole canvas, the whole paper. Control X to cut it. Control Tab. Just like in Rhino, that takes you from viewport to viewport. In most programs, Control Tab will take you from document to document. I'm going to Control Tab over to my 6 by 6 and Control V paste. Control Tab back to this, and I'll close it, which you can do with Control W. Don't want to save what I did. There. So, here are my lines. All right. Now that I'm in here with it, you'll see how the lines are really crisp. There's some aliasing going on. They're very dark. I don't like that look. So what I do, once I've brought it in, is I transform it. And to transform in Photoshop, if you've selected your layer, which is also the reason I copy and paste or cut and paste, is it brings it on its own layer, which I like. If you hit V, you will get this array here. And then this is do it freehand. Actually, I don't want to do that, so I'm going to type in transform, rotate. Right here is your degree angle. Let's make it 11. Now what's important is that once you've done this, just like in Painter you want to commit transform, you will have to commit transform before you can do anything. So you can commit transform in Photoshop by just picking a tool that you would need it to be transformed to use, like a paintbrush, and that will transform the image. I could have also clicked on background and then gone back to the file. Anything you do that takes it out of that movement or transforming mode will commit the transform to a high resolution image. By the way, give you as much information as I can, I apologize. Free transform is what all graphics programs do when you manipulate an image. It's to save memory power in your computer. They turn it into a low resolution version of itself so you can scale it, twirl it, manipulate it, and then when you're all done, it will then have to commit that back to a high resolution version before you can do any more work on it. So that's what happened here. When I rotated it, it transformed it, free transformed it, it took it to a low resolution item. And then when I tried to use a paintbrush tool, it took it back to high res. We're going to do the same thing back again, so I'm going to type in the V. Unfortunately, it doesn't give me that chance to do an accurate transform here, so edit transform again. Oh, no, don't want to do that. That repeated it. Try that again. Edit, transform, rotate. Here we go. And this will bring this back. So I'm going to type in -11. And once again, to get it to commit transform, and you can see how bad it is to get it to commit transform. I'll hit the paintbrush again. And what that does is it blurs this very, very slightly. It softens it. Okay? I can show you the difference, because people don't believe me. Copy it to clipboard so I don't lose it. Undo, undo, redo. Now in Photoshop, redo is not Control-Y, it's Control-Shift-Z. Control-Z is undo, Control-Shift-Z is redo. So there's the original. I'm going to paste back in the other one. Now, when you paste something back into Photoshop, if you just go Control-V, it'll throw it in the middle of the document, which may not be where you want it. If you want it to come back exactly where you copied it from, you hold down Control-Shift-V. And that should put it back right where it was. So this is the one that I played with. This is the one that I didn't play with. And they look the same. So in Painter, there's a real difference. There's an argument against Photoshop. So you don't have to bother with the transform rotate, guys. Don't bother, because in Photoshop, it makes no difference. All right. To delete a layer in Photoshop, you select it, and there's a garbage can right here. What I will do with it, however, is I will make it less opaque. This also helps make it a little blurrier, but it also makes it look more like a pencil line. Jet black is a color that you don't see in drawing. So I'll get it in nice charcoal gray. It's more appealing. I'm going to drop this down to the canvas, which you get with flatten image. And then I'm going to pick it back up off the canvas. To get a rectangular selection marquee, like you use in Painter, you use M as the shortcut, or you can come over here and select it. Drag a window, and then I want to pick it up off the canvas. To pick it up off the canvas, you should be able to just hit V. Nope. That allows me to move it around. If I move it, it'll take it off the canvas. I don't want to have to do that. So instead of doing that, I'll just cut and paste. I'll Control X, and then Control-Shift-V to get it back in the same place. Now it's a layer. All right. Taking longer than I need to, but I am trying to show you how to do things in a different program than what you're used to. So, all right, now I'm going to actually draw on this. Sorry, got to set up. In my office, I use a pen monitor, pen display. And the pen display allows me to draw right on it. So, okay. Next thing I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to set up symmetry. And the main thing I'm going to want to work with here is this front view. This is where I'm going to see most of my information. So I'm going to go to a paintbrush tool. And once I have the paintbrush tool, I have access to symmetry. And I want vertical symmetry. And I have this now sitting here. Okay. To move it, you just click on it and drag. Now, you have handles here. This is a transformable object in Photoshop. It doesn't really matter. I can draw outside of its parameters down here, and it still works in symmetry. So there's really no reason to bother with it. But if you wanted to move it, no, that even won't work anymore. If you wanted to have moved it and distorted it when it was active, you could. I need to move it now, though. So, transform symmetry. I want to drag it so that it centers right up. So I'll zoom way in so I can really see the pixels so that I believe it's centered once I hit the paintbrush icon. Now, unfortunately, in Photoshop, is the same shortcut as Painter. It's B for brush, but when you have the symmetry tool active, the keyboard shortcut doesn't work. You have to come over and click it. As I said in class, right now I have something weird here. I have a charcoal brush, it looks like, charcoal pencil. The pen we're going to use, you want to click on the tool that has the number for the size of the brush. You don't want to come over here because this is going to give you a whole different set of brushes. We want the it'll depend on what someone's loaded on that computer. We want to use the standard brushes. And the ones I like is the soft, and I'm going to actually use my mouse because it's easier. See, you have hard round, pressure, opacity, and flow, and soft round, pressure, opacity, and flow. You can see the difference is that this is going to be like a pen, this is going to be more grainy like a pencil. In Painter, it's beautiful because the tools interact with paper. So you actually get the tooth of the paper as you draw. It looks very realistic. You don't have that in Photoshop. You have brushes down here that will try and do the same thing. Kyle's Drawing Back's High PHB or Ultimate Pencil Hard should give you that. But when you click on them, I'm going to set this drawing color over here, you'll see that they aren't quite as nice. To set the color in Photoshop, you can either come over here and just select a nice gray, or you can use the Alt button and sample the color of the drawing. Okay, you can already see that at 8 pixels, which is how big this brush is, it's really big. So we need to go down to like 4, which is as small as I ever want to go with a brush. Okay? Now, what you're seeing here is pressure sensitive. Is you're getting a very erratic response from the brush. And that's because none of these Photoshop brushes are meant to work this small. Painter brushes don't care how small you go. They maintain their behavior. Photoshop brushes hate to be small, which is why you either have to work above scale and scale it down when you're done, or you have to use one of their most basic brushes. And I like this. And the very basic brushes will allow you to work small. But see, even this is not as nice as what you get in Painter. So to get to Painter level, we're going to have to kill all of the, we're going to go for pressures equal size. And when you have this active, when you press lightly, the brush is smaller. When you press hard, it's thicker. They don't actually have a version that ignores your stylus's pressure sensitivity. So it's either opacity. Well, actually, I lied to you. Soft round. There we go. There. That will kill every. Yeah. That's the best equivalent we have to a painter brush right there. So ignore what I said in class. For painting, you are going to want to use the pressure equals opacity and flow. But for drawing at our scale, you're going to go straight down to just a soft brush, and that will look the most like a pencil line. And I want to go a little darker. I am going to use a fresh layer. And see, in Painter, a 4-pixel brush is tinier than that. There. We're going to see what happens. If we go down to 3, you're really giving Photoshop very little information to work with. But that'll work. Okay, so I'm setting up at a 3-pixel brush. And I will keep experimenting. The problem I'm getting is at 3 pixels, it doesn't register color very much. Fine. Sorry, but it is not Painter. It is not as graceful as Painter. So now that I have this set up in Photoshop, so I can start to draw. I'm going to address things I don't like. I think I got the angle here too severe. I think that is a better angle. All right, so I'm going to use that angle. In Photoshop, unfortunately it doesn't work with a pen stylus, but it works with your mouse. You can click and hold Shift, and it will draw a straight line. I want to do that because I want in my drawing, when I take this back into Painter, I want to know roughly where that hits here, because that'll be helpful to me. And now that I have that, Shift, I can bring that down as well. So that's the main thing. I didn't really love where that ended up. So I've got those. There are some other things that are kind of crazy here. If I Shift X transfers this back and forth, I have the button on my stylus set to it, which you can do as well. And that will allow me to come in here and correct some of the things that I see are wrong. Or that I need to change. Take that out. For some reason, Rhino drew, this is a surface edge. Rhino drew the surface edge for no reason. I'm going to increase the flow on this brush. It's natively set to 38. Flow is how fast it reloads itself with pigment. By boosting that up, I should get a little prompter response. Yeah. So, I've got that. Take that out. Just to make it easier to visualize, I will clear that out through there. Okay, so actually I made a mistake. Instead of clearing this out, I want to take this further over. Gonna have to let that go to voicemail, unfortunately. Actually, I'm gonna have to pause the video.